The 2025 NFL season is right around the corner, and every team has that one player who stands above the rest. So in today's video, I am going to be giving you guys every single team's best player heading into 2025. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. Now we are going to be doing this in alphabetical order, beginning with the Arizona Cardinals and ending with the Washington Commanders. And as I mentioned, we are going to begin with the Arizona Cardinals, and I think their best player heading into 2025 is Trey McBride. Now I do think Marvin Harrison Jr. has the potential to become the best player on this team, but so far in his young career, he has not quite put it all together. There are some other guys I did consider, of course, Kyler Murray, Paris Johnson Jr., Budda Baker. Those guys were all considered, but I think Trey McBride is probably the most underrated player on this entire team because I think he's the best player on their team. He's one of the best tight ends out there, and I think for this Cardinals team, he will have a massive role heading into 2025. Next up, I got the Atlanta Falcons, and for their best player, I have Bijan Robinson. Similar to the Cardinals, there was a lot to consider here. Guys like Drake London were in consideration. Some of their offensive linemen were considered, and the one that I really had to debate was Jesse Bates. I do think there's a strong argument for either player, but ultimately I do think Bijan Robinson is one of the best players in the entire NFL, and because he's on the offensive end, he has a bit more of an impact on the team compared to a safety who's usually 10 plus yards away from the line of scrimmage and can only affect the game in so many different ways. Bijan though has everything you want in a running back. He's fast, he's athletic, he's agile, can break tackles for days. You could also use him in the passing game, and I do expect this year to probably be his best year of his young career. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens. This one is very easy. It is, of course, Lamar Jackson. Now, you could make the argument that Derrick Henry is the better player, but I don't think the argument really holds up. Lamar Jackson is a multiple-time MVP. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and the Baltimore Ravens have a stacked roster that is likely going to end up making a deep playoff run, and the biggest reason why is because of their superstar quarterback Lamar Jackson. Moving over to the Buffalo Bills, again, not much debate here. It is of course going to be Josh Allen. You could also consider Deion Dawkins for this award too, but outside of that, nobody really has an argument here. Josh Allen just won MVP last year. He has been one of the NFL's most consistently dominant quarterbacks in the league. He can pass the ball effectively. He can run the ball effectively. He is basically the entire machine of that Buffalo Bills offense. He is a special talent, and for the foreseeable future, he's probably going to be the Buffalo Bills' best player for probably the next 10 years. Moving over to the Carolina Panthers. Now, there was two players I did really consider for this one, and that was J.C. Horn and Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown did miss the entirety of the 2024 season, so that did kind of knock him a little bit, but J.C. Horn also does struggle with injuries, and let's be honest, 2024 was not like an incredible season for him. In coverage especially, he was just really solid, but not great. Derrick Brown, on the other hand, is an elite run stuffer, arguably one of the best run stuffers in the NFL. We saw just how bad that run defense was last year for Carolina, and the biggest reason why it was just so god-awful was because Derrick Brown was not out there. I expect this season the Panthers to be a lot better at stuffing the run because of Derrick Brown. He is just that impactful of a guy. Now, compared to other nose tackles who might pop up in this video or be discussed throughout, Derrick Brown is not somebody that will often get after the quarterback. He is primarily just a run stuffer who can get you like a few sacks here and there, but that's not really his go-to thing. Carolina is a rebuilding team. I expect by next year there will probably be a new best player on their roster. Moving over to the Chicago Bears, and I have the newcomer Joe Thuney as their best player. Now, I did consider Jalen Johnson very much here, but I do think Joe Thuney just slightly is better, and because he's the newcomer, just thought maybe it'd be a little bit more fun to throw him up there. It's really tight between those two guys. If you think Johnson's better, then I have no disagreements here. I'm going to go with Joe Thuney, though. He's a multiple-time Pro Bowler, has been in the All-Pro before. I mean, he is just one of the best guards, if not the best guards in the NFL. And for the Chicago Bears, they got an absolute steal of bringing this guy to their offensive line because they needed help badly on the line. They get Joe Thuney, and I think that is going to be one of the biggest upgrades for this team heading into this upcoming season. Next up, I have the Cincinnati Bengals, and I really had two options here, Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase. And frankly, it's kind of a toss-up as to who you're going to pick for this one. The only reason why I did go with Jamar Chase, and again, if you go Joe Burrow, I don't disagree with you. I'm just thinking that Jamar might be a little bit better, and that's just because Jamar has been a little bit more healthy throughout his career, and he's also been fairly quarterback proof. No matter who's at quarterback, he's still very productive. But the biggest reason why I actually did put Jamar over Joe is because I think Joe is probably the third or fourth best quarterback in the NFL, and I think Jamar Chase is probably the second or maybe even the best wideout in the entire NFL. So Joe Burrow plays a more difficult position. Jamar Chase has been a bit more healthy. It's a toss-up. You could go Joe Burrow. I want to switch it up here and went with Jamar Chase. Next up, the Cleveland Browns. It's Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is maybe the best player in the entire NFL, and it's kind of sad that he's kind of wasting his career there. The Browns just announced that Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback this upcoming season, and their schedule to start the year off is brutal. So Joe Flacco, good luck out there, buddy. I wish you the best. Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, maybe even Kenny Pickett, be prepared to get some playing time this year because this Browns team is going to be straight up trash this year. Shout out Myles Garrett. He has been a consistent force in this defense, stuffing the run, getting after the quarterback. He's just been really good throughout his entire career. Moving over to the Dallas Cowboys, a report just came out today that I think it was from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter, one of the two, that the Dallas Cowboys might eventually be moving off of Micah Parsons. And as a Cowboys fan, fuck you, Jerry Jones. Pay this guy. He's the best player on the team, and in my opinion, it's not even close. Micah Parsons is, in my opinion, the best guy here. Dak Prescott was also considered. CeeDee Lamb was the other guy that was like really close. I also think Tyler Smith, the left guard, has really done a great job in developing, so he can probably be in the conversation. But it's Micah Parsons. He dealt with injuries last year, but despite that, was still on pace for a career year. Micah Parsons is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys, and if you're a Cowboys fan, please go out there and revolt against Jerry Jones. This guy needs a new contract ASAP because he is the most impactful guy on this team. Moving over to the Denver Broncos, and I have Patrick Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year, the best lockdown corner in the NFL. You know you're a good player when you can basically lock down half a field all by yourself, and all you have to worry about is your second and third corner consistently getting picked on because of how dominant Pat Surtain was. And that's exactly what happened last year. He did not have a lot of really plays out there because they really never tested him. When he was tested, it was a whole lot of batted passes, a lot of picks, a lot of great lockdown moments. Sure, here and there he gave up something, but come on, guys. Pat Surtain is a ridiculously good player. I also did consider their guard Quinn Miners. He's one of the most underrated players in the league. Ultimately, Pat Surtain is just the best player, arguably the best cornerback in the NFL, and maybe a top 10 player in the league. Next up, the Detroit Lions. Now, I did consider a few players here, but I ultimately did land on Penei Sewell. The one that I really had a debate with was Aiden Hutchinson, because before the injury, Aiden Hutchinson was on a career year type of path, and he is one of the best players in the NFL. I also considered Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and a handful of other guys. But Penei Sewell, to me, is just such a dominant tackle. Tackle is, in my opinion, one of the hardest positions in the NFL because you're consistently going up against a lot of athletic freaks off the edge. And Penei Sewell is absolutely dominant. He's dominant as a pass blocker, even more so dominant as a run blocker. He's just, to me, the total package. And if you were to do a draft of, you know, every single player in the league and you're redrafting your teams, I'm sure Penei Sewell would probably still end up being probably a top 15 pick because he's that good and that young of a tackle. Next up, the Green Bay Packers. I went with Xavier McKinney. New York Giants fans are probably kicking themselves for their team not bringing back Xavier McKinney. That one was always kind of weird to me. I never understood why the Giants did not prioritize McKinney because McKinney is arguably the best safety in the NFL. He can get turnovers. He's excellent in coverage. He's a solid run defender too. He's just the total package. And for Green Bay, it made a ton of sense to bring him in, and arguably he's the most impactful player on that defense. The secondary for Green Bay is very questionable this year, but the safety play of Xavier McKinney and the other safety who I'm blanking on, Evan, I think those two guys are going to have a lot of work ahead for them because their cornerbacks are not very good. McKinney should be in for a nice big year this time. Next up, the Houston Texans. I went with Derek Stingley, but you could also go with Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, and Will Anderson. Those four guys, like, you could really pick any of them, and I could definitely hear the argument. I went with Derek Stingley because I think he plays the hardest position in the NFL, not named quarterback, and that is corner, and he is absolutely dominant from that position, can create turnovers, lock down in coverage. He's not quite of the level of a Pat Surtain, but he is at that Pro Bowl, All-Pro level, and when you are an All-Pro corner, I think it's extremely impressive. So I went with Derek Stingley. You could again go with Will Anderson, maybe even Danielle Hunter, I could hear the argument for. CJ Stroud at quarterback had a bit of a down year, but you could also kind of throw him in the mix there. And Nico Collins, I would have went with Nico if he was just a bit more healthy, so that's why I went with Derek Stingley. Stingley's an awesome player, one of the best corners in the NFL, and he's the best player on the Texans in my opinion. Moving over to the Indianapolis Colts, and I went with Quentin Nelson. Now, this was a strong conversation to myself about whether it would be Jonathan Taylor or Quentin Nelson, but Quentin Nelson is going to go ahead and edge him out slightly here. He's just been the epitome of consistent throughout his career. You know, obviously, he broke out on the scene a few years ago, and nowadays he's kind of one of those under radar guys that nobody talks about, but is secretly like one of the best players out there. Quentin Nelson is just a guard that does his his job. Solid in pass protection, solid as a run blocker, and he's excellent as a puller. Like, he could do everything you want from that guard position, and he has been the cornerstone piece that the Colts drafted him to be, and he's been exactly that. So Quentin Nelson's their best player. He is getting a little bit older now. I mean, it's kind of crazy to say that, but he is getting a little bit older. So it'll be interesting to see if he can hold up for, you know, as he enters into those later 30s eventually. But for now, he's the best player on the team, and I think he's an awesome guy. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I went with Brian Thomas Jr. Now, this could be one of those picks that's a little bit too early to tell because he was only just a rookie last year, and maybe I should have went with Josh Hines Allen. Sure, I can hear the argument, but Brian Thomas Jr. to me was a top 5 receiver, arguably in the NFL last year. And as we head into this upcoming season with a new system, with a new running mate in Travis Hunter, I think he is going to be in for a massive year. And because of that, I think he could be the best player on this Jaguars team. It should be Trevor Lawrence, but so far T-Law has not been able to put it all together. And I think this year he might have the chance to do so, mainly because of Brian Thomas Jr. and some improvements with Liam Cohen and Travis Hunter both helping him on the offensive end. Again, if you do go Josh Hines Allen, I could hear the argument, but I'm gonna go with Brian Thomas Jr. He's, in my opinion, the more impactful guy on the offensive end. We are at the halfway point, and here we are with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. Of course, not a whole lot of conversation here, but you could have went with Chris Jones, who has a strong argument as well. Outside of that, I really can't hear an argument for anybody else, but Patrick Mahomes is one of the best players in the NFL. He's been the most clutch quarterback in the league for the past, 10 years now. He's won multiple Super Bowls, has won MVPs, multiple-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro. Mahomes has the total package. He is already solidified as a future first-ballot Hall of Famer already, only a few years into his career. And he's the face of the league for a reason. He's the best player on the Chiefs. He's the best player on a team that's won multiple championships. He's been the biggest reason why. And you never want to see this guy with the 2-minute drive in the fourth quarter down by 3 because you know you're going to lose because of that damn motherfucker, Patrick Mahomes, who can always get the job done. Mahomes is the best player, arguably, in the entire NFL. Moving over to the Las Vegas Raiders, I went with Max Crosby, but I could hear the argument for a guy like Brock Bowers because I do think Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the NFL, but I don't think Max is the best edge rusher. My argument is that the tight end position is not as impactful as a dominant edge rusher. If you do say Brock Bowers is better, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm just going to go with a guy like Max Crosby, who is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. That Raiders defense has not a ton of talent on it, and Max Crosby is one of the few guys on that defense that you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. He is going to get you 10 plus sacks, be a complete disruptor, take over games at times, but ultimately the other guys are probably going to fail around him because the defense is not that talented, especially in the secondary. Max Crosby is going to have a massive year this upcoming season, and we'll see if he can carry this Raiders team to a couple victories on the defensive end. Next up, I have the Los Angeles Chargers, and I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. Now, I think prior I would have probably selected Rashawn Slater, but he is now going to miss the entire season, which is extremely unfortunate. And outside of Rashawn Slater, the next guy up is probably Justin Herbert. You could even make the argument that Herbert is the better player, even if Rashawn is healthy. Those guys are pretty dang close to one another. But I went with Justin Herbert, one of the best pure throwers of the football. The only knock on him is the lack of playoff success. And frankly, I think at this stage, it is a bit of a reasonable knock. There is a lot of pressure on Herbert to finally have some playoff success either this year or next year or sometime in the near future. For now, though, Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I do think he's in that second tier, right behind the top tier guys, but Herbert is right there in the conversation. So Herbert's the best player on the Chargers, and I think he's going to be in for another big year now in year 2 with Harbaugh. Moving over to the LA Rams, and I am going to go with Puka Nacua. Now, could you make the argument for a Matthew Stafford or even a Jared Verse here? Yes, but Stafford has the injury concerns you're always worrying about, and Jared Verse needs to put the statistics better in the sack category. I think he only had like 6 or 7 last year. If he can get to like 10 or 12, then yeah, give it to Jared Verse. Puka Nacua, who also dealt with injuries last year, is still one of the most productive players in the league. Whenever he's out there on the field, Stafford is targeting this guy over and over and over again. If he can just maintain his health this upcoming season, he'll probably be the best player on the Rams. Moving over to the Miami Dolphins, this one was very hard to do because I think Tyreek Hill is the best player, but last year he was not that impressive. but it's not that long ago back in 2023 where he had, I want to say, like over 1,800 receiving yards. So if he can get back to around that level, even if it's not that much, if he can get to about 1,200, 1,300, he'll probably be the best player. The edge rushers are really good, but they're just not consistently healthy. And outside of that, I guess you consider like a Tua Vaughn, maybe a Waddle, but Tyreek Hill is probably the best of that group. Moving over to the Minnesota Vikings, and their best player is Justin Jefferson. There really is no competition for this one. They do have some good edge rushers and a few good defensive pieces here and there that could make the argument, but Justin Jefferson to me is the best receiver in the NFL, even better than a Jamar Chase. That one can be up for debate. I would take Jefferson, but if you take Jamar, I don't necessarily disagree with you either. Jefferson is quarterback proof. He can succeed no matter who's at quarterback. This year, it's going to be J.J. McCarthy, so we'll see if he can hold up this year. Moving over to the New England Patriots, and I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez has developed nicely into truly one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. He now has a running mate alongside him in Carlton Davis. The defense has a ton of improvements on the defensive line, so I expect Christian Gonzalez to be even better this upcoming season. He has future All-Pro and Pro Bowler written all over him. The team doesn't really have a guy outside of Christian that I think could really make the argument for this one. Maybe Drake May, but it feels a little bit too early. Stephon Diggs, I guess. Milton Williams, maybe, but Christian Gonzalez feels like the safe bet here. Moving over to the New Orleans Saints, and somehow, some way, the 36, 37-year-old linebacker Demario Davis is still the best player on this team. And by the way, it's not like he's just the best player on a shitty team. He's truly like one of the best linebackers out there. They have an absolute stud in Demario. It's a shame that this is probably going to be the next couple years where he does kind of fall off a little bit, but he's still maintaining this awesome play. He's still a Pro Bowl level linebacker. And outside of Demario Davis, this Saints team doesn't really have another guy that you feel really great about. I mean, maybe Chris Olave, but he's always injured. I think Kelvin Banks, my Texas Longhorn, you see the flag right here, could be the next guy up, but for now, it'll be Demario Davis. Next up, the New York Giants. I did really consider Malik Neighbors, but Dexter Lawrence is the best player on this team. Excellent run stuffer, can get after the quarterback. Sexy Dexy's just one of the biggest dudes in the NFL. He consistently gets his tasks done, and he's just an incredible player. Again, Neighbors would have been the fun pick here, but it would not have been the right pick. Not yet, at least. For now, it's Lawrence. I hope that Neighbors can get into that conversation, though. Next up, the New York Jets. There was 3 guys I considered here, and all 3 to me are tied, but I ultimately did go with Sauce Gardner. The 3 are Sauce, Quinnen, and Garrett Wilson. They all kind of feel the same in a lot of ways, where they're excellent players, but in 2024, they did not have their greatest years. Garrett probably had the best of the 3, but Quinnen didn't really have his best year last year. He only had, I think, about 7 sacks last year and was just solid against the run. With that said, the rest of the interior defensive linemen were god-awful last year. And then for Sauce, he also had a bit of a down year. That one was a bit more questionable why he had a down year, but for the most part, through his career, he's been really good, one of the lockdown corners in the league. I went with Sauce because I think he's the highest upside guy of the 3, hence why I put him here. But you could put Wilson or you could put Quinnen, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles. It's somehow, some way, the 36-year-old Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is an absolute monster. I want you guys to go look at his statistics. He plays the hardest position in the NFL, tackle. Now, he does play right instead of left, which right's a little bit easier, but still, he plays the right tackle position, one of the hardest in the entire NFL, and he's consistently giving up either 0 to 1 sack a season. Occasionally, he'll give up like 3, but usually it's 0 or 1. And by the way, for a most common tackles out there, a good season is giving up less than 5 sacks on a season. A 5-sack season from Lane Johnson would be considered a down year, like a massively down year. Lane Johnson is an incredible tackle, and somehow at 36, he's still doing it at an extremely elite level. Jordan Mailata is next up. He is an awesome left tackle, and he might deserve this award too, but I'm going to give it to Lane Johnson. Got to give the Unk his flowers here. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers. They just paid the man. It's TJ Watt, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, can take over games, also solid against the run. They even sometimes put him out there in coverage, and he'll make a play here and there. He's just one of the best players in the NFL, one of the best edge rushers out there. Future Hall of Famer. He's already got that locked up. He's had that locked up for a few years. Great player. The Steelers really don't have any other guy outside of him that I would seriously consider, maybe besides like a Cam Hayward. Next up, I got the San Francisco 49ers, and I went with Fred Warner. Now, you could also go with with Trent Williams or Nick Bosa or George Kittle. All those guys have a very strong argument there, but Trent had a major injury last year, and I'm a little bit more cautious about that. George is incredible, but I don't think he plays the most impactful position. Nick Bosa is also extremely well, and he was probably the next man up. I went with Fred Warner because I always love linebackers, and Fred Warner to me is the best linebacker in the NFL. One of the best in coverage, one of the best downhill as a run defender. He's such an impactful star on this team, and he really is the guy that gets this defense to run. Nick Bosa is also right there in the conversation. I really don't have an argument against it. I just personally went with Fred Warner. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks. I went with Devon Witherspoon. I also did consider Jackson Smith-Njigba and Charles Cross, but I ultimately decided to go with Devon Witherspoon. Elite versatility, elite run defender, excellent in coverage, can be a playmaker as well. Future Pro Bowl, All-Pro written all over him. He already has a couple, by the way. This dude is a freak of nature. I think he's the best player on Seattle. Next up, I have Antoine Winfield Jr. Now, last year was a bit of a down year in coverage, especially because of some injuries, but for the most part, we can't forget that he was, I think, the runner-up in 2023 for Defensive Player of the Year. You could consider Mike Evans or even Baker Mayfield for this award. I went with Antoine Winfield Jr. because I do think he'll bounce back and look a lot more like the 2023 version of himself if he can manage to stay healthy. Tristan Wirfs should also be mentioned here as well, but I went with Antoine Winfield. Next up, the Tennessee Titans. The best player on the team for the past couple years has been Jeffrey Simmons, and that should not change this year. I don't think it's going to change for a couple years. Maybe Cam Ward can get into that argument here in a few years, but outside of him, the Titans are kind of void of that superstar talent. Jeffrey is one of those few superstars on this team, and hopefully in the next couple years, he'll have some more competition. And lastly, we have the former rookie, now sophomore quarterback, Jaden Daniels, as the best player for the Washington Commanders. He was such a great player in his rookie year, I just had to give him the award. You could also consider Terry McLaurin, but as of right now, he has not gotten paid, and even if he does, it's still Jaden Daniels' spot right here. He was so dominant in his rookie season, leading the Commanders, a team that was consistently missing the playoffs, to a playoff spot, and not just making it, but making it all the way to the NFC Championship game, and had a few things went their way. Maybe they're making a Super Bowl run. The Commanders are a great team, and this year is a big year. Jaden Daniels is the biggest reason why. But you let me know in the comment section below, what do you agree with, what do you disagree with, and if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.